Well, hello there and welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel. Thank you again for coming back for another episode here. We are still in the same day as we were in the previous episode. Just as I had indicated, I would bring us all back together in about 30 minutes or so. I'm not sure how much time did pass in the game. I did do a few things, basically tended to the animals so that will be at 100% whenever it resets itself. Also, just in making room for our straw that we're going to be baling here in just a few minutes, I went ahead and also emptied out what we had in storage up at the cow facility. It was about 10 bales or so, the cows took about 6 of those, the pigs took the other 3 or 4, I think, and so we are good to go there. So we've got basically an empty barn for storage. Now, I went to another save game, the original default Goldcrest Valley map, and because I wanted to try to test to determine, was it something I did wrong, was doing wrong? Was it an issue with the game? Was it an issue with the map? Was it an issue with just my lack of intelligence on the matters? And it actually proved to be the latter. It was my stupidity, my um, ignorance in the sense of knowing the differences between how the auger wagon functions in FS17 versus how it functioned in FS15. So basically, we were attempting to do this up on the field up there, and we ran into a problem. It would not, if I bring up the F1 menu, I was not getting an I for unload. It wasn't automatically unloading. Nothing was basically happening. We attempted, sort of tested the dump anywhere, and it sort of bypassed the tipper and spilled out on the ground. We tried also tipping directly into into a sell point. That wouldn't work. Issues not with the game. It's not with the auger wagon. As far as I can tell, there are no issues at all. Again, it's my stupidity. So essentially, we have the cover open, which I don't think it really matters, and we have the pipe out, O. So if we retract the pipe, that's what that does. If we extend the pipe, that's what that does. The thing that we were missing was this. You have to move the pipe to begin the emptying process, and it's automatic as you would expect it to be. It just does it. So if you raise the pipe, it's going to stop. If you lower the pipe just slightly, whatever it needs to be to accommodate whatever tipper that you're dumping into, that's how it's got to be. So my stupidity, or I will rephrase it and say my lack of understanding the differences between this version and the augers that we had in Farming Sim 15. Basically 15, there was no, as far as I know, there was no adjustment of the actual pipe. It just basically I think N was the keystroke to, or no, O was the keystroke to extend the pipe, and it extended. And for the most part, like if you remember, if you were using horseplay, the pipe was always extended, so you were driving around with the pipe extended for that to function and work. So that's obviously how all that works. So there's no fault with the auger wagon. There's no fault with version 1.3.1. There's no fault with Stevie's map. The fault all was in my lack of experience. So we're going to go ahead and just bounce over here to this guy. Yep, that's our tipper. So we're going to go ahead and take him. So thankfully I didn't have to, waste, not that it would have been a waste of time, but well, it would have been a waste of time for me to have to dump that on the ground and then scoop that up and to handle it. Because while you could possibly argue and say, what's the point of using the auger wagon on single player? And that's actually probably a valid argument. One could say, there's not much reason to use the auger wagon in single player, because what you're basically doing is you're handling the material twice. And I think that is a valid argument, but I was just wanting to kind of demonstrate something and you know, this is all about variations in gameplay and style, and I think the way that I'm actually going to use the auger wagon next, that you will probably see next episode, sort of makes sense. Remember, we have a great demand for corn, and we're just going to kind of park this out here in the middle of the lot because we're not no need to wash it and put it up because we may use it again. But you may remember that we have a great demand for corn, I believe, down at Mary's farm. And so what we're going to do, not this episode because we're going to bale some hay, I think, but we will harvest our 2 fields of corn, which are setting right behind us, 15 and I believe 14. And we'll use the auger wagon because we will basically take it from the field, from the harvester in the auger wagon, and then from the auger wagon we're going to dump it directly into our semi tipper trailer and then haul directly to Mary's farm. And of course we could drive the semi tipper trailer onto the field itself, but we're going to just more or less simulate using the auger wagon now that we know that it works and everything is good to go there. So fun stuff, fun stuff. All right, let's get back over to this guy. This is our baler in our Fendt 900, and we will go down and start baling that straw. Of course, if AI, well, I don't know, will AI bale? I know AI will mow, and I believe AI will rake. I saw a video, I saw somebody doing that with AI the other day. It wasn't perfect, but we'll see if AI will bale. If they will, then we may go ahead and get on that corn harvest now versus later. But let's just see if AI is going to bale. So let's unfold. And we'll turn the baler on, lower the pickup. Of course, we've got partially got grass in here, but it'll switch over to straw here momentarily. Once we pull this in, then it will change over to straw. And I don't know if we can yeah, I don't think you can hire a worker for no, you can't hire a worker. That's fine. I mean, we don't there's really actually, I mean, there's no need to hire a worker. I mean, you could, with Courseplay, you could obviously set up courses for baling hay, but I actually enjoy baling, so that's okay. I was just going to try to save you all because I think you saw me bale some hay maybe a couple of episodes ago, and I was just trying to save you from having to watch another episode of baling hay. But again, these are things that need to be done on the farm, and this process, this baling the hay, is integral to our overall plan, our overall seasonal approach to virtual farming with FarmSim 17, because we need to make sure that we have plenty of hay to sustain our operations from essentially this point, considering that we don't own not one single bale of hay except for what we've currently made. So from this point until the point in which our spring planted wheat or barley, or maybe if we do a winter plant, which would basically be due about this time the following season, then we can go from there. But so yeah, we're going to be looking at probably baling everything that we can get from our wheat and our barley crops. We've got 3 fields which we harvested this morning of wheat, so we'll bale all 3 of those. And we've got a couple of fields of barley, and we won't obviously bale that today because we it's not ready to harvest, but when it is, we will bale it and then put that into our storage. And if we have an abundance left over, then we may sell that so that we keep it rotated. And I mentioned, I think in episode 12, I couldn't remember the mod which caused bales to age and sort of weather conditions affect them and such. That was the bale extension mod, and I do not believe it's available for 17 yet. Certainly if somebody knows different, post it in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that I've not seen anybody talking about the bale extension mod. So I do have to say that, you know, I like to point out the good things that I see with 17, equally as I will also point out the negative things that I tend to see from time to time. But I do like how the combine, when the hired worker is driving it, stops just short of the end of the field and lets the straw swath basically pile up there without spreading it out through the grass or through another field or whatever. You know, it's a little hard to pick it all up 100% because it's a bit wide for well, we managed to do it that time, but it's a bit wide, a little bit wider than the pickup sometimes. But I do like that. I think that's maybe a little more realistic. I think in the real world you would be a little more cautious to that versus dragging it out through the grass, which might make it a little bit more difficult to pick up. You know, when every liter of straw matters, you're going to take those kind of things into consideration when you're farming. So that's a good thing. All right, we'll go ahead and drop that bale there, and then we will proceed across the highway and start baling this. Should have left the pickup up there. My apologies. And we're off again. I think I've said this before, but it's certainly worthy to say again that, you know, I think the advantages, the positive changes that have been made to 17 far exceed, far outweigh the negative things. And of course, you know, one of the negatives, you know, I certainly mentioned this yesterday, or in maybe episode 12, that, you know, the difficulties I had with the chaff, the silage, the compaction of the chaff and all that kind of stuff. And that, to me, that is a setback from the 15 days, and I get the fact that Giants is trying to make it a little, you know, realism a little bit more true, and I take my hat off to them for that. But at the same time, I'm sort of thinking that the technology of the game, the technology of, you know, how they've developed it and everything is just they've perhaps pushed the envelope a little bit too far with regards to that, and it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a problem. It's kind of more of a challenge than maybe what it really needs to be. But we'll see. I'm certainly gonna try Johnny V's suggestions. I mentioned those in the last episode of, you know, really compacting it with the tractor and the tipper, using the weight of a loaded tipper to pack it, then empty that load, come back and, you know, do that rinse and repeat about every other load, just to try to keep, because I will tell you, and I did this off camera, I did all the compacting off camera. It took over 30 minutes. I won't say that it was an hour, but I think it was probably somewhere between you know, 45 minutes, something like that, to run back and forth over the top of it. I picked up, there's a couple of, in the mod hub, there's a couple of roller, there's a mod, like a roller with some spikes on it, and I picked up 2 of those, mounted one to the front of the tractor, one to the back of the tractor. That really didn't make a difference at all. But I went back and forth over it, and, you know, the funny thing is I wouldn't mind the effort that you have to invest if every time you drove the tractor over it, it increased the compaction rate by, say, 2%, something like that. The funny thing that I noticed is that, you know, I was going over it multiple times and it would only increase the value like 1% at a time. So I mean, like, you know, 30%. And you drive backwards, forwards, backwards, it goes to 31%. Backwards, forward, backwards, it goes to 32%. So it just, the amount of time that it took, and you know, vehicles got high centered because of using that blade, and I think, as you can kind of see from that episode, because of the peaks and valleys in the chaff as it was piled up, the tractor, you know, when you're going up the peak, the blade is up in the air and it's not really doing anything. Then when the nose of the tractor comes down in the next valley, then it digs into the side and creates another valley. So it's kind of, you're almost, in my opinion, the blade almost just sort of makes things worse than it actually is, because I don't think that it accurately represents what the blade would do in real life. And I think I might have demonstrated and talked about the fact that, you know, in theory, you should also be able to use the blade to pull. Not that that would be the method that you would want to use, but still, it should basically pull. Shut the baler off and lift the pickup up that time. And we will quickly just bale this right quick. Again, I'm going to say it again. I say this every time I bale, but I really wish that bell counter mod was available, because it would kind of be nice to know how many bells we've produced, but we'll know soon enough as we begin to collect it and get it into storage. I'm sort of guessing several dozen. The auto stacker will collect 16, so I would hope that we would have at least 3. Maybe 3 loads of 16, something like that. I don't know. because I'm trying to think. This is game day 5. I do not believe I purchased any straw from the store on game day 4. And I think each purchase from the store, I think that is that 8 bells, I think it's 8 bells from the store. And I think I purchased 3 or 4 of those. So we went through quite a bit of straw. Just in, you know, the straw for the bedding, the straw for mixed ration, so by the end of this game day, this is my hope. By the end of this game day, I already know that our silage is ready to be partially uncovered, so we've got that going for us. We've obviously got straw. Now, it may not be up in the barn and stacked nicely and everything, but we have it. We own it. It's in our fields. And I hope that by the end of this game day, that we will add okay, I guess it'll ride. I was afraid it was going to dump off. Anyway, so I hope by the end of this game day, we will have some grass, because we've only got hay. We've only got 2 bales of hay currently up in the shed. So I'm hoping that by the end of this game day, we will have a little bit more hay, and then probably during game day 6, that big field which we chopped corn out of yesterday, that should be ready to mow. And so that should get all of our elements that we need: straw, grass, or straw, hay, and silage. That should have us covered. And then of course we'll need grass, we'll need loose grass, which we'll have to think about how we're going to do that. Yeah, the big piles of straw or whatever it is would be the same if it was well, the combine only produces straw, but the big pile, you know, that leaves some, but that's okay. We'll just plow that in. Obviously, we're going to be plowing all these fields. Probably some of these fields we're going to be planting cover crop on. Not sure which ones. We're also going to experiment a little bit with crop rotation as best as we can do. Of course, it's not really going to matter. The game's not going to take advantage of that, but at least in our mind, in our way of thinking and playing the game, you know, it will. I'll come inside the cab. I know I almost rarely drive first person, and I'm sorry for that. I should pay a little bit more attention to it. And and do it when I think that I can, when it won't make that much of a difference. Mirrors aren't bad in this tractor. You know, I can kind of see what the baler's doing back there. Not sure if it's going to unload or not. Let's just, for grins and giggles, let's just check frames on the updated version of 17. So again, this is 1.3.1, and pretty solid 60 there. And as I've said, I don't really worry about that too much. As far as fully knowing exactly what number I get on average, I mean, based on my experiences of, you know, other games that I've played over the years, you know, if I could get heck, if I could get 40 frames solid out of Flight Sim in, say, a PMDG something or another, either the 737 or the 777, if I could get a solid 40 frames with that, I'd be pleased as punch. So knowing that, you know, here on 17 I'm getting 60, you know, it was bouncing down to 58, 57, 59, something like that, but I'd still say that's a pretty solid 60. I have no need to worry about that. All right, last row. Because I may have to think about just how much hay I want to place in one spot. Well, hay and straw, because I don't want to make things at the cow shed so unbearable as far as frames are concerned, because while I don't necessarily worry about stressing over the amount of frames that I'm getting or not getting, I do know that, let me just empty this. I do know that bales of hay obviously will cause a bit of a drop in frames. Maybe that's what's causing it to kind of toggle between 58 and 60 or so, but you know, it's still locked on to 60 up there. I believe you can see that on the video. But we'll just have to see how it goes. We'll put some we'll collect some of this straw here now on camera, and then we'll take a look at how much time we have left. And I'm just going to drop this out here because most likely we're going to be mowing grass before the day is over, and no need in putting it up and then having to drag it back out again. So we will grab our auto stacker here, and we sort of opted for doing square bells versus round bells. First of all, the baling process is a little faster with square bells because you don't have to stop. There's no sizable difference, 4,000 liters versus 4,000 liters. Of course, if we were wrapping hay or grass for silage, that would be a completely different story. I do like that Corona. Round baler, the one that was for 15, that you had to put the string and the wrap in. You had to buy those at the store. I do like that. That's just not available yet. I did see some discussion regarding that mod on the Farming Sim forums, and I think somebody was trying to convert it to 17 and they were failing miserably. So of course that's a completely different discussion. You know, folks need to be patient, I think, for some of these mods to come available, and you need to be patient with the original mod developers to do that, to make those mods available. You know, there is yet another unauthorized, non-supported, non-official version of Courseplay that has been released out on those mod sites, and people are posting questions and having frustration because it's causing them issues with their game saves and everything. Well, you know, just wait, folks. The official version of Courseplay will come out when it's available, and when it is available, you're not going to see it on fs15mods .popups .malware .virus infested websites. You're going to find it on their GitHub official website. So go out to the Courseplay website, just Google Courseplay and find their real website, and they are posting updates there. There's also updates that are routinely being discussed about the official version of Courseplay on PCSG forums, as well as on Mod Central. But you know, if you see it on, you know, FS17 mods or some site like that, if you see it out there, then you're pretty much guaranteed that's an unofficial, unsupported, unauthorized version of Courseplay, and it will cause you problems. It will cause you problems, and I really wish that some of the YouTube guys that had been so quick to record gameplay with the first version of the first unauthorized version of Courseplay, I wish those guys had taken their videos down when they realized that it was an unofficial version of Courseplay, because I think that's just caused more confusion. I think it's caused more frustration, and I think it's caused more people to struggle with their game saves, because, you know, they're seeing folks play with that version of Courseplay, not understanding that it's not It's not the official copy because the guy that's doing the YouTube video, he doesn't know that it's not an official copy, or if he does know it's not official, he's certainly not mentioning that. And so it's just creating this cycle that's causing pain and frustration in the community, and people just need to, I think people just need to chill out and relax and wait. Patience, patience, patience. All right, so here's kind of what we're going to do. We are going to stack this here because, for one, I cannot get 8 bales high into this shed, at least not in an organized manner in which I want to do this. So I'm going to stack these here and then bring another load up, and then I will move those into the shed with the telehandler at some point in time. Not in a hurry to do it because this is the same day and we've got bright sunny skies, so we don't have to worry about rain or anything. And I realize that, you know, if someone created a piece of equipment, an implement or something for 15, and they did that, you know, a year and a half ago, maybe, you know, it's possible that they're no longer interested in farm sim, and you know, maybe there's somewhat of a valid reason for someone else to come along and take that mod and convert it to 17. And of course, hopefully they're giving credit to the original mod author. But something like Courseplay, as an example, something like Courseplay, something like Soil Mod, something like even like Auto Combine, that we may not even get Auto Combine as we know it in Auto Tractor, which I never was a big fan of Auto Tractor. But we may not, but I was with Auto Combine, but we may not see Auto Combine for 17. Because there's, from what I've read on some of the forums, there's significant changes in the way that between 15 and 17 that would cause maybe a complete rewrite of the Auto Combine and Auto Tractor mods. And I think the mod author of those, I think, is this, well, I'm not going to say that because I'm not for 100% sure, but anyway, the mod author has posted that basically he's going to wait and see what happens with Courseplay to see how Courseplay is handling some of these changes, and then maybe go from there. So I mean, Courseplay could still be, you know, it could still be a couple of weeks away. It could be a couple of months away. It could be 2 hours away. It may be out there right now. My point that I'm making is that, you know, when it's available, when it's ready, after it's been thoroughly tested, they'll make it available for all of us to download and use and enjoy, because it is something that obviously is much needed and much appreciated in the community. I, for one, would love to have it, because while I have said many times that I'm not a fan of 100% automation, there are just things that I would like to be able to do with Courseplay to better potentially tell a story. And I know some of the other YouTubers that I know feel the same way, that you know, there's only so much we can do in single player mode with AI and such. Like, for example, here's a good example for you. That brand new sugar beet piece of equipment, I can't think of the name of it right now. I will show it to you though. Let me stop. Bring up the store, beet harvesting. This guy right here, the Terraphellus 2 Eco. I played around with this on a test map just because I wanted to play with it. I wanted to see what it was about. So I used this guy to harvest, and then I used the companion tipper to this, and then I tipped anywhere alongside the field, and then I brought this guy up thinking, okay, gonna pick the sugar beets up now and put them into a tractor tipper. Great demand for spinnery for wool. We've got wool as well. We're gonna make some money today before the day is out, that is for sure. But anyway, um, it was impossible. It was impossible to use that new sugar beet harvest or machine, the picker upper from the ground, because you don't have enough people. You know, I mean, you just are yourself. You can't hire a worker for it. You can't hire a worker for a tractor tipper. So it's sort of like, okay, well, you need course play for the tractor tipper operator so that then you can drive the Terrafelis. So of course the Terrafelis for multiplayer would be great, would be fantastic, but you know, I don't do a whole lot of multiplayer. I tried, I wanted to set up a multiplayer server, and that just became, I went through about 3 different hosts. The Bipolar Prophet has just set up a multiplayer server. I think he made it available on Thanksgiving. And so I may look into spending some time on that. Kind of looking forward to it, and see how it goes. He used a different, he used a host in the UK, which I never tried because I sort of thought, well, if I'm having so much performance related latency type problems, then that's only going to just be worse in trying to use a server, a host that's located, 4,000 miles away. If I'm having problems with a host that I believe has a data center somewhere in the Midwest, and I'm having latency issues with being the only one on the map, on the game at the time, then how is that going to be just, you know, that's going to be worse when you're factoring in um, the location of where the server and the host is. So I don't know. I wish him the best of luck, because I mean, he definitely has the right intentions. He's got he's got the following that's interested in doing that kind of stuff, and I think it would be fun. I think multiplayer, multiplayer has its place, and this is certainly a game that multiplayer is a lot of fun when you have like-minded individuals, and I emphasize that because the worst thing that you can do with a multiplayer server or multiplayer environment for any game is to share that space, share that time, share that gameplay with people who are not serious about it. If they want to turn it into Grand Theft Tractor, and just basically drive around and wreck your equipment or move all your equipment around, drop all, there's kids that like to, go onto a multiplayer server, and they basically move all the implements, like all the cultivators and plows and seeders and everything out in the middle of a field, and move the tractor someplace else just to cause problems and cause the host or anyone else that's wanting to play, wasted time to go in and find all that equipment and get everything set back up again. And of course, there's those guys that will, especially if crop destruction is on, or like in the FS15 days with soil mod, go out there and, screw things up. Um, and of course, there's ways to deal with those types of people, but kind of you have to almost you either have to allow people onto your server that you've known for a great deal of time, that you know what their intentions are. You've maybe seen how they play their own single player farming, especially if they're doing YouTube videos, and then allow those people, or you kind of have to wait until an incident happens. But then sometimes it's too late, you know. I mean, a person can't be on the multiplayer server 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, of course, you can have admins and other people that are, you know, keeping a watchful eye on the situation, and of course that's very important to have. But you know, even then, it can't be a full-time job for people. It's just like the multiplayer server for ATS and ETS2. You know, unfortunately, there are individuals that find it to be rather entertaining for them to basically drive around and troll people, crash into them, cause problems, block roads, block fuel pumps, block, oops, I should have folded that up, block trailer drop-off points, etc. And they take enjoyment out of that. And of course, there's reporting methods and there's ways that you can deal with that, but it's still, you know, until it happens, and until it happens to you. And I've had it, you know, I've been trolled many a times on the multiplayer servers, and I used to, when I was active running with my Grizzly Bear trucking company, that I finally just, you know, closed down because of some problems with the website and stuff. But you know, I would run what I call dash cam video. That was essentially just, you know, recording a Twitch stream that I wasn't narrating or talking or anything like that, because it was kind of easy to then, if there was an incident, take that Twitch stream, export that to YouTube, mark the incident, and then file a report with Truckers MP and say, okay, at the 4 minute 20 second mark or whatever, such and such driver crashed into me or was blocking the fuel pump or whatever. And most of those reports that I did, I think I reported about 6 different, or created about 6 different reports. I think all but one actually resulted in a suspension for the, you know, albeit just temporary, but still. Thankfully, Stevie gave us enough room to kind of maneuver around and do something like that. I guess, I mean, in an ideal, perfect world, if there was a barn tall enough to just back this thing into and unload the hay right into it in stacks 8 high, that would be fine. But you know, we don't have that, and to me, that's sort of overkill anyway. So I don't mind doing it this way. And quite honestly, that bell fork that I use, I think I showed you that one in the store a couple of episodes ago. That works great, by the way. And you know, it's got the locking script on it, so you can do X to lock the bells on, and you can easily lift 4 at a time. And so that's how I plan to just stack that straw, just pick up. So basically break those stacks into stacks of 4, and then fill each side of that barn up, one side with hay and the other side with straw. And then of course with the silage that we have that is ready to go, we'll just scoop that up as we need it. go from there. And while I've got the Joskin auto loading trailer, which will do bells and pallets and things of that nature, I just find that it's easier for me to handle the bells when they're stacked in an upright, standing fashion. I can grab a hold of four of them and move them around, whereas when they're offloaded like this, if they were just moved horizontally over, then the bell forks are only long enough to grab one at a time. I think anyways. Okay, this is going to make, if my calculations and my math are correct, this is going to make about 64 bells that we've got up here at this particular point in time. We're also reaching our magic 60 minutes hour mark. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this episode up here, because obviously I think you've probably seen enough bell stacking and baling and everything for this episode, and I'm hoping those don't shake and wobble and fall down. Plus I want to make sure that this is not going to cause me problems, because I do want to have, I'm obviously going to need hay up here as well. Maybe somewhat equal amounts, although in the total mixed rations the mixture of hay is twice as much as straw. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. That's 64 bells. We'll look at getting those put away, do that off camera, because my bell handling is pretty atrocious, and do that off camera, and then we'll also pick up these remaining bells off camera as well. And depending on how full that barn is up there, I may end up stacking the rest of this in another barn. For now, I'm gonna obviously hold on to everything that we collect, and then if need be, we can sell it at a later date, or obviously transfer it from the other barn up to the cattle area. That's where I'm going to consider where everything's going to be prepared from, will be up there. So anyway, thank you so much. Well, actually I need to get a thumbnail, don't I? So I'm going to just take another minute or so to collect a few bells here, grab a thumbnail, and say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. Please leave comments if you have questions, if you have suggestions, if you have constructive criticism. I think I've talked about this before, that as long as your criticism is constructive and not hateful in any way, I would love to hear it. I'm not perfect. I'm not Steven Spielberg's son, so I'm not. I don't have the talent and the mentoring and everything for creating blockbuster videos, but I don't know who does. But you know, if there's something that you'd like to see, if whatever, leave a comment. I do read the comments, and I do even try to respond to the comments, and I will even go so far as to say that I commit to, you know, responding to all the comments, as long as I'm certainly notified of them through YouTube, and for, you know, until at least the episodes don't become weeks and weeks old. Then it kind of gets difficult for me to go out and basically respond to a comment if it's a comment for a video that I did, you know, a month and a half ago, for example. All right, let's see how this looks. That looks pretty good. I think you can tell what I'm doing from that thumbnail. All right, well, thank you so much again for watching. I do appreciate it. I love this Fendt tractor, by the way, and look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon here on my YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.